we have seen this, firms or organizations going away from siloed operations. I think shared fraud and AML data is key and is gold, and it helps and bring efficiency in the process of investigation. So having a full customer holistic view, not only based on transaction, but also their behavior and pattern is really important, really key.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast, where we explore critical trends and strategies shaping risk, security, and leadership today. I am your host, Boris Agranovich, founder and CEO at Global Risk Community, and our guest today is Nauman Abuzar, is Director of AML and Risk Solutions at SEON, where he advises on AML, KYC, and transaction monitoring. With over a decade of global experience in compliance, financial crime, and fraud prevention, he brings expertise across fintech, regtech, crypto, and payments. So, Norman, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you for having me here. Pretty excited.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So I believe we'll have very thoughtful conversation on the topic on about how AML and fraud prevention are merging to meet modern threats. We will also discuss stablecoins, crypto. But before that, Norman, could you tell us a short story about yourself, your career path, what brought you to where you are right now, and what you guys at SEON are up to these days?
Yeah, that, as you mentioned, like I came from an AML compliance background for more than 15 years, worked across a couple of jurisdictions, across fintech, payment, crypto, and many other diverse industries. I have a very rich experience around regtech as well. I joined SEON 2 years ago. Been helping, and we have been working on like building AML, case management, transaction monitoring solutions. SEON is a full command center for both fraud and AML teams. We offer full cycle of compliance and fraud prevention solution for full complete life cycle of the users. So we help customers to, detect fraud patterns, fraud behaviors during the sign-ups or registration or onboarding. We also help with the, KYC, AML screening against sanctioned PAP and adverse media, the transaction monitoring across fraud patterns or AML or terrorist financing typologies, and a very detailed and enhanced case management for teams to collaborate, investigate, and file suspicious reporting using a single solution. So our goal is to have a single command center for both teams to manage and eliminate any sort of risk that they fight every day.
Mhm. All right, fantastic. So much experience. So you're still young. Okay, so let's discuss about fraud and convergence and AML. Just my own. So
Okay.
for years, AML and fraud prevention operated in separate silos.
Yeah.
What's driving their convergence today, and why do you believe this shift is long overdue?
I think it's because of a couple of reasons. I'll talk more from a industry perspective because industry has seen a lot of trends over the last couple of years. I think post-pandemic, I would say that digital fraud has been evolved over the period using a lot of new technologies. And, it's really key for both teams to share data across, fraud behavior, fraud patterns, and for investigation perspective. We have seen a couple of industries that has been, been working on silos, but we as a solution provider have seen a couple of companies or organizations moving away from silos operation, looking for more single dedicated, shared, holistic customer view. Also, recently, most of the regulators, if you talk about suspicious reporting, our like if you go 10 years back, suspicious reporting was very keen towards AML typologies, even though within the SAR templates or STR templates, you can only see AML typologies. But if you see recent FinCEN or any other regulators suspicious reporting template, it also covers a very enrich kind of dynamic customer information that helps them to share data around the, regulated institution to, detect these kind of, bad actors or suspicious actors. Recent reports coming in from Wolfsburgs or European Banking Authority or FinCEN, they are very emphasizing towards sharing or using dynamic customer data during the screening or monitoring or onboarding, and which is going to be key, or which is key for our goal, I would say, for AML teams to have this information to further investigate, over the period of many years. During the KYC, we usually use a very static information, very static data of customers. But I think now Wolfsburg report usually emphasizing and encouraging firms to implement, um, you know, dynamic customer data around device ID or IP information or other behavior patterns that would help them to, monitor not only transactional based, but also behavior patterns, sessions or events that help to detect any kind of fraudster. So it's really key. I have seen like this shift coming in from different regulators from in different regimes. So I think it's more like a change in the industry risks, but also apart from regulator, it's coming more like pushing towards implementation and having a strong governance around shared data, which also helps companies to build a very strong consortium data. We at SEON also have a very strong fraud signals that helps companies to, have like a shared signals and use the consortium data to detect these patterns or users right away, more faster than the ever. So I think it's key, and regulators have seen this as a very value added. So that's
All
what I can.
right. So you mentioned that traditional transaction monitoring isn't enough anymore. In practical terms, what does a modern AML transaction monitoring look like, and why is a retrospective alerting no longer sufficient?
I think I'll talk also about AI, how like AI can help in detecting these anomalies, but I think let's take an example of a transaction that I've been doing through using my application. I'm based in Amsterdam, or using my account for making a very normal transaction, and suddenly I'm in third world country. Let's say I'm in Pakistan, back in my home country, and making another transaction using the same application. So detection of like change in the IP, change in the location could trigger some, fraud patterns or fraud behavior, or, generate an alert that if users behavior change. This help companies to detect any kind of anomalies upfront using these additional data rather than only transaction data. So in this scenario, like this session or event behavior or event trigger the alert for customer or to the companies to detect any alarming situation before any transaction happens. So that's really key. Then, of course, using an AI to detect different anomalies or use change in customer behavior is also really important. It's like machine learning capabilities help, using both consortium as well as black box or, not away from like static rules, right? So if there's any pattern or behavior that does not fall under your static rule that you have already configured, so AI can also help you, or machine learning capabilities also trigger some risk scoring or alerts to, uh, mitigate any sort of risk right before anything or before any transaction happens.
Mhm. So, because global regulations are increasingly emphasizing real-time or near real-time screening, how are this involving regulatory expectations, reshaping the way risk and compliance teams operate, by your experience?
Yeah, I think recent reports coming in from, I have seen like EBA report very recently, like how banks or financial institutions within the EU, or even reports coming from, global watchdog or global regulators about how firms are utilizing, technologies to monitor real-time transactions. also why they are failing. So there's a lack of explainability or governance around implementation of these tools or these programs or like how they approach it. I think this is something regulators has been seeing, or even industry has been facing this as a challenge. Um, and we at SEON have been working with a lot of companies who do real-time payments, right? So having a right technology, like co-designing is another, expectation that regulators really want to see that how compliance teams understand the use of technology and the technology providers understand the compliance obligations. It's really key for both parties to do co-designing and setting a right governance structure to, mitigate this kind of risks patterns. And I think share data and as well as have a feedback loop is really important as well because EBA mentioned like 90% of the banks fail using right type of technologies and they pretty much don't understand or not able to explain like how technology actually works, which is really important in the real-time payments, fast payment space. So yeah, I would say like three key elements are there, like right technology, right use of technology, having a co-designing approach, setting a right governance around like reaching a, enriching a right data that can add a value during the investigation or detecting anomalies. And then, of course, feedback loop and having a proper set governance that would help them.
All right, awesome. So let's discuss more about crypto and the stable coins because your company is also providing risk management and AML fraud prevention in these areas. Can you share with us this?
Yeah, I think stablecoin is like a pretty evolved industry, pretty boomed industry right now. Most of the um, payment space, or as well as banks, I would say, are moving towards stablecoin infrastructure. Crypto has been a high risk for over the last couple of years. Even banks usually stay away from that, but I think stablecoin has changed that payment space with fast, right, real-time settlement of FX. Increase the need of stablecoin uh, as well as increase the monitoring and risk patterns. So we have a couple of clients who use us to detect any fraud elements during the transactions or settlement of fiat to stablecoin or stable to fiat kind of infrastructure. Of course, blockchain monitoring or screening is really key. It's a very open source tool which you can simply monitor and enable any sort of risk that could you can detect during like that's a transaction happening on the blockchain. But of course, adding other static or dynamic data on top of it is key for this industry. And we have seen like we recently like even launched our risk bundle that helps not only different jurisdiction but different industry to set up different type of risk matrix to to avoid any sort of fraud or AML risk. But yeah, I feel like the adoption of stablecoin is increasingly expanding to different all the jurisdiction, I would say. Like if we talk about EU, so MiCA guidelines are pretty like implemented across the EU. I think grandfathering period is going to end by mid next year. So I think by then most of the farmers needs to adopt these kind of technologies and write programs to monitor such transactions. If we talk about Latin market, it's a pretty big market for stablecoins at this point as well. Just last week, Brazil launched their crypto regulations as well, and
Mm.
grandfathering period ending, I think, November 2026. So the implementation has already been begun. If we go to APAC, of course, Singapore also launched their stablecoin related regulations. Um, US already introduced Genius Act, so the implementation of crypto and stablecoin has already been like pretty on the top priority for them. So yeah, as far as like adoption across not only like by crypto companies, but also within the fintech and banking space, increased the demand of implementing these risk solutions, and we are pretty much on top of it to meet those requirements to help companies to able to detect these kind of fraud or AML patterns for this industry. But yeah, it comes also with a lot of other evolving risk that, of course, that fraudster or bad actors has been doing using these new technologies, including AI. So we have to be stay on top of it.
Mhm. So, all right. It's an interesting topic because stable coins, of course, help. I know some people from Argentina. They use their old salary just to stable coins, so not to not to lose any dollar value,
Right.
whatever they have. But no one. I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What is the major misconception in the field of AML and fraud prevention that you kind of strongly disagree with?
I think the misconception is always about like there is always a right approach to mitigate fraud or AML risk. Every industry, every company, every jurisdiction have their own risk on regulatory obligations, and having a right program fits a proper, I would say a proper risk management and governance is key for that. And I think there is a very I always see a misconception around like if AML and fraud is same globally, which I see no, because I've been working with companies in more than 25 countries so far remotely, right? And if I see the regulations across the globe for different type of industry, it's still like it's pretty based on the risk appetite or risk framework of the local regulations or the industry itself. So the misconception around like, oh, everything is same, like oh, AMLC is same, like sanction is same, but it's pretty slightly like, or I won't say slightly, but it's pretty risk-based approach, and that's why the risk framework, the risk management, the risk matrix is really key for every company to set up. And that's why like we at SEON take a very dynamic approach of doing this. And as I mentioned, like our risk bundle that we launched last week was just to meet those requirements, because we have companies who operate in different jurisdictions, but their risk appetite is different, their risk framework is different, or their risk itself or it's different for those jurisdictions. So it helps them to set up different controls, different monitoring rules, different risk screening processes for those jurisdictions. Let's take an example of like if one company operating in EU have a different sanction and risk program, but the same company operating in Brazil, they have to also screen local-based AML screening using identifier, right? So it's a pretty global plus local approach. So I see this is a very big misconception by most of the non-compliance or other experts, or I would say like so yeah.
All right. So, drawing your on your experience working with global companies like you say the fintech, gaming operations, and other regulated industry, what common blind spots or challenges do you see as organizations try to modernize their fraud and AML programs?
I think for fraud, like having a very enriched and um, a consortium data is always a key. So, for example, if we are operating or working, we have like, we have been pioneer in iGaming or payment or digital space so far. And we have seen like it's really helpful, and the same challenge that we have seen across these companies are fraudsters who sign up using the devices or the IPs or other dynamic information that usually also we and that we see as a challenge, and we help companies to mitigate that based on our trained machine learning models, right? So it gives like signals right away during the registration, and we have seen that customers who were having a challenge of fighting fraudster during the KYC, they were able to eliminate them during the registration when using this information. So they can easily eliminate those fraudsters they were able to onboard previously before using our solution. We have seen most of the customers came to us or knocked to our door, or we spoke to, always faced the same challenge, like these fraudster with new evolving technologies, able to find a loophole or gap on their platforms and able to abuse their platforms. Um, and yeah, we see that as a challenge, and that's why the solution we built around was to help them and mitigate that kind of risk. And yeah, if you see, most of our customers are pretty much able to eliminate those fraudster right before the registration of hard KYC.
Mhm. Yeah, I recognize this topic as I'm running now global risk community, and daily I have to approve about 20 profiles, and I think about 15 or more of them are kind of fraudsters or spammers. So it's kind of difficult manual situation for us at this time to do this. But okay.
Yeah. If we see a full cycle or journey of the user starting from registration, then KYC, then screening, then monitoring and reporting, we are able to try to or help our customers to eliminate that risk from the registration level. So they don't need to go through the hard KYC, which of course expensive as well as time taking for our risk specialist to review and monitor. So yeah.
Mhm. All right. So if we summarize our interview for someone who is listening and would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would that be?
I think like we have seen this firms or organizations going away from siloed operations. I think shared fraud and AML data is key and is gold, and it helps and bring efficiency in the process of investigation. So having a full customer holistic view, not only based on transaction, but also their behavior and pattern is really important, really key. Right use of technology with right use of AI. I know that AI is like been booming around, like how you can use AML or sorry, AI within the AML or fraud, but do we know how it works? So this is really important, right? I think using a right AI, we at SEON use AI to bring efficiency and automation rather than making a lot 100% decision. So human in the loop is really key if you're using AI. And EBA report says 90% of the banks fails to explain how they are using AI. So it's pretty much not bringing like a failure in the detection model, but also from a regulatory perspective. So yes, I think if I summarize into 3 points, right? Right governance, explainability, and co-designing and understanding of right technology is key.
All right. Thank you. This was a great interview. And if I forgot to ask you something that you think is important to our audience, please go ahead and tell us.
No, I think I covered everything. So
Yeah, you covered everything. Yeah,
yeah.
sure. For first time, it's good to hear from you guys. So you started in Hungary, right? Your company started in Hungary, then you started kind of all over the world, right?
Yes, we started back in 2017 in Hungary with the Budapest startup. We now have offices globally, like so we have office in London, we have in Singapore, and we have a headquarters in Austin. And We are facilitating more than 5,000 customers today with 9,000 plus signals data that helps our customers to, fight fraud and, mitigate any sort of risk that they see every day.
All right, fantastic, great experience, and I wish you in your company SEON a great success, and hope we can cooperate in the future with further interesting cooperation.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.